Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Jay Stevens Podcast. This is episode 60, dedicated to an individual that hit a career-high 60 home runs during the 1927 Major League Baseball season, Mr. Babe Ruth. And as always, thank you for listening and downloading to the episode of the podcast. On today's episode, Keith Potter of the Next Guy Up podcast joins me to talk about one of the sports that he is the most passionate about, baseball. A couple months ago, Keith and cousin Mike, his co-host, invited me onto their podcast to talk Minnesota Golden Gopher football, Indianapolis Colts football, and the Chase Young suspension. It was my first guest appearance on any podcast. I thoroughly enjoyed it, and I love sports for that very reason. I had no verbal contact with either of those men prior to recording for their podcast. Keith and I had some messaging back and forth, setting up and getting the details lined up for when I would record and when I would come on with them, but that was it. So no verbal communication, no nothing. But we hopped on, and it was like we had known each other for a while. Sports brought us together. We talked about football. Cousin Mike went to Minnesota, so we had a connection there. He went there. I liked what PJ Fleck was doing up there in Minnesota with that football team, that football program, changing the culture basically overnight. And I loved every second of it. So when thinking about the Astros cheating, the cheating scandals, the sign stealing scandal that's going on right now in baseball, I said, who can I figure out? Who can I get to come on to be able to provide great insights, great dialogue, great thoughts about this very topic? Keith's name came into my mind. You'll find throughout our conversation as you listen to it, Keith is very, very passionate about baseball, and it comes out. He had a rant, I think it was his last episode or a couple episodes ago, where he went on a long rant about the sign stealing and things like that and his thoughts on it. Well, while doing that, he was checking his heart rate meter on his Fitbit, and his heart rate kept going up and up and up. But you'll hear throughout the portion of this conversation him talk about that. I bring it up more than he does, and we laugh about it. Just have a good old time. I think you'll thoroughly enjoy this. Without further ado, let's go ahead and take a trip to the state of New York and enjoy a fun conversation with Keith Potter of the Next Guy Up podcast. Hey, Keith, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, Jay, it is my pleasure to join you tonight. I love your podcast. My pleasure to be on it. Thank you so much.
No problem, man. I'm really glad you can come on. You and your cousin have a podcast together. What were some thoughts going through your head or his head about starting the podcast and things like that?
Yeah, we do. We have a podcast. It's on all the forums. It's called Next Guy Up. And what happened was, actually, back in 2017, I started another podcast called Just a Bit Outside with two other friends. And as that grew, we brought my cousin Mike into it as guys were falling off. Life gets in the way. So we brought Mike, and I always wanted to do something with Mike because my cousin, first of all, he's my cousin. He's very knowledgeable in sports. And he went to school for it. He went to school for this. He went to school for journalists and broadcast. And I used to listen to his radio show, Gopher Radio, up there in Minnesota on Saturday morning. So I've always used to listen to him. And I was like, oh, man, I'd love to do something with him one day because I always want to do a radio show or a podcast, but I never had the guts to go ahead and do it. So we started this Next Guy Up podcast when our other podcast, Just a Bit Outside, ended. And what the Next Guy Up podcast is, and we get into that later on, it's just really two guys talking sports and trying to bring on somebody like we had you on, Jay, a couple of weeks ago, just to talk about sports and whatever the topic of the week that week is. Why I started to do it is because I was sick of yelling in my car to my dashboard. You know what I mean? I have a lot of opinions on sports, and I wanted the world to hear them. And I'm sure my friends have done with my texts, and my wife's done with it. My wife's not a sports fan, but I was a little bit of a sports fan. And I would talk to her, and she's just like, tell somebody else. So I did. So I started a podcast, and I'm telling you guys and trying to get this stuff off my chest. I find it very therapeutic. So, Next Guy Up. We started this one back in Memorial Day of last year, and it's going pretty good.
Okay, so I didn't know about the other one. How long were you doing that one before it ended?
Just a bit outside. We did that from 2017 to about 2019, give it a take. Yeah, about 2019, the summer, we took a break. Then we brought it back. And then the guy who started it, Tom, good friend of mine, he got really busy with his life, a lot of things going on with him, so he couldn't do it anymore. So I kind of took the reins of being the producer and the editor and all that, and I'm trying to, fumble my way through that. He did a great job with it. I'm getting there. So Just a Bit Outside went for a couple of, 2 years. It was fun. We had a lot of fun with it.
Yeah, it seems like I've listened to a few that you and Mike have done, and it seems like your back and forth is very, very good. If one person has a rant they want to go on, I listened to yours about when you were doing your heart rate meter, talking about how your heart rate kept going up and up and up. I was like, oh, this is good. And then at the same time, you're comfortable backing off and letting Mike talk about certain things. Was that a natural thing? Are you guys normally like that, being family members, or did you guys kind of like figure out a way to make it work once you started the podcast?
Well, Mike knows what makes me tick. I know what makes him tick. So, you know, when I have something I'm passionate about, my passion is baseball, and especially stuff like we're going to talk about in a minute. He knows that I'm going to go off. His passion really is football. He likes baseball, but not as much as I do. He's into baseball, not as much as I am. But his passion is football and hockey. Now, we're going to have to get into hockey pretty soon. I'm going to have to fake my way through that. I'm not a big hockey fan. But he's very, very, very passionate about the Jets. And he's very passionate about college sports, especially college athletes. So I know how to push his buttons. He knows how to push mine, and we want to get a ride going in the podcast. We know how to do it.
Nice. And hockey is one of those sports that I'm not really I don't watch all the time. I'm trying to get better at it and watch more games. It's a different type of sport. It's more of a niche. But it's one thing I'm trying to get better at right now. Well, you already mentioned it. I didn't have to say it. One of your passions is baseball. And with what's going on right now in baseball, let's go right to the Houston Astros. I know there's other teams that are involved in that, one up there in New York where you live. But the Houston Astros cheating, sign stealing, we can go back years and decades, talk about how sign stealing has been going on in baseball. And I'm not sure. I know what I think about this, but I want to get your thoughts first. What have your thoughts been with the Astros cheating, sign stealing issue? You read about this, all this kind of stuff. What have your thoughts been about throughout this whole process?
Well, this process has made me sad. To be honest with you, Jay, it really has made me sad as a baseball fan. And then when I say this, I want to preface it by saying I'm going to talk about this. I don't want your listeners to think that I'm condoning cheating. I am definitely not condoning cheating. I don't cheat in my life. I try not to. We've all cheated at something. But let's all be honest. None of us are saints walking this earth. So we all done something wrong. There's no doubt about that. Well, you know, I have. Let me talk for myself, right? So I'm not going to condone cheating. But I think this is the most overblown scandal, and I do use the air quotes of that, of all time. Because, Jay, you just mentioned it. This goes back for almost a century, let alone decades, when electronics or technology is brought into the game. Some managers, some general managers, some front office, some player used a way to make it beneficial to them. The Astros just did it too. So this is something that made me sad by the way it's been treated, the way it's been reported on, the way the fans are so hypocritical about how they go about blaming the Astros. Astros are getting what they deserve. You get caught, you pay. And they got caught, and they're paying. You know? So, but to pile on and to just want more and more and more and more, how many pounds of flesh do you need? How many pounds of flesh? They didn't kill anybody. You know what I mean? Yeah, I understand there's millions of dollars involved, and I understand all that. But there's a reason why the Red Sox, the Yankees, and the Dodgers didn't complain about it then. They didn't make a big stink about it then. They knew what was going on. They just know that that's part of the game. They know that's what's going on because they're probably doing it too. And we can get into that in a minute too. There's evidence that some of those teams have done similar things. So you're going to tell me that just stopped because the commissioner told them to stop? Well, they're going to find another way. This has been going on since, you mentioned it, the 51 Giants, the shot heard around the world. We all know about the shot that heard around the world. Mm-hmm. 59 Chicago White Sox, George Kelly. He brought it over from the Red Sox of 59. He brought over, they had some kind of elaborate, electronic scoreboard where in Fenway they would put like a white towel on the scoreboard, and that meant curveball. A red towel meant that. They've been doing this forever. They're always going to find a way to do it. So what made me sad here is, Jay, the Astros didn't need to do this. They didn't need to do this. They're good enough not to do this. And we can get into, a little, if you indulge me, I can tell you about the 2017 playoffs. You've been seeing the memes. You've been seeing the reports of the splits, right? Yeah, everybody talks about the splits. All right. Oh, yeah. I can make an argument for why that is ridiculous. Can you indulge me on that?
Yeah, go ahead.
All right, great. So They want to talk about the splits. They took 3 players. McCann, I believe, is one of them, Altuve and Carrera. And, yes, those splits are comical. But that happens. Guys play better at home. Now, they probably did benefit from it's been proven that they cheated. They probably benefit from it. But what no one has mentioned yet is when the Astros went in a division series to Boston, they got 25 hits in 2 games. 25 hits in 2 games in the division series in Fenway. They didn't bring the garbage can with them. They didn't have a camera out in center field. They didn't need to do this. They were talented enough not to do this. The Yankee series, they want to talk about the splits. They want to talk about everybody. They want. I think everybody won a home game. All home teams won in that series. But what lost the series for the Yankees? They made 6 errors. Houston made 2 errors. The Yankees had 45 hits. Houston had 45 hits. The Yankees had 40 hits. They were as even as can be. They made 6 errors, and that's how they lost the game. That's how they lost the game. And I don't know, Jay, if you've ever been to a playoff game. I've been to a playoff game. I'm a Mets fan.
I have not yet.
But I have been to. You can't hear yourself think. I have no idea how these players were able to hear a garbage can. You can't. And any of your listeners that have been to a playoff game, think about what I'm saying. Do you think you can hear a garbage can with the noise in a playoff game? You guys all watch it. We all get Fox. We all hear the noise. Those microphones are right where the dugouts are. Do you think they're picking up garbage cans in the playoffs? But they did it. So they did
No
it.
way.
So they get caught, Yeah, there's no way. There's no way. And the Dodgers, that was so back and forth, that World Series. That was so back and forth. 24-18. That was a run differential right there. And they lost games at home. The Dodgers won handedly in Houston. So they cheated. Again, I'm going back to it. Yes. So everyone jumps on that, but they want to throw these memes up and they want to throw these things out there. How the Astros are this and the Astros are that. This is why it's sad to me, Jay. The Astros did not need to do that. They were the best team in baseball without it.
I agree 100%. I have said this numerous times. You may think I'm crazy for saying this, but I think that what they did was clever. Not saying I condone it. Don't think that's what I'm trying to say. The fact that they created that way to steal signs and it actually worked. I mean, this is baseball, and like I said, I've never been to a postseason playoff game, but I have watched baseball on television, divisional round, league championship series. The deeper it goes in the playoffs, the louder it gets. So even if they were at home and they tried to do that, you're straining with your ear to hear that trash can. So take the postseason out of it. I'm sure you're deeper into this than I am. I've seen different things that they have done. But even in a regular season game, someone right there sitting right behind a home plate in that seat, they're going to hear something. And they're going to wonder, what is that banging? Or security guard, do you hear that? That doesn't sound right. And there's so many different variables that go into just literally hitting that trash can. I find this clever. I don't condone it. I don't like it. I think it's stupid. But at the same time, I like to have fun with sports. And I think what they did is clever. And am I crazy for thinking that?
No, you're not. I feel the same exact way. I mean, it's wrong, but you're 100% right. It's clever because anyone who's played the game at that level, I can't say anyone because the guy. We're talking about social media in a second and how social media blew this whole thing out of the proportion that it is. But the guys, like I would say, 15 players have talked out against us on Twitter. Everyone's on Twitter. It's the guys that are silent that are speaking volumes right now because they know what's happening all over the place. They hired Alex Cora that year to be a bench coach. They brought him in knowing that he knows these kind of things. That's the bench coach's job. Bench coach's job, I think, I could be wrong, I could be crazy, and I hope your listeners haven't wrote me off to being a nutbag yet. They will, but I hope they haven't done it yet. That I think they brought him in for that. I think they signed Carlos Beltran for that reason because Carlos Beltran and Alex Cora supposedly put this together. And it's just funny, Jay, isn't it, that the two guys' names in the report are guys that don't work for them anymore? Is that convenient? Convenient? Oh, yeah. Two guys that Major League Baseball can throw to the wolves because they think that that's going to be enough. These guys can lose their jobs. Everyone's going to be cool with it. It's sad. It's sad what happened. And then the Yankees. Let's talk about the Yankees for a second. Do you think the Yankees knew that the Astros were cheating in 2017? Do you think they heard, like you said, do you think they heard that garbage can as well?
I'm sure actually, I don't know if it was 2017, but it was one series, maybe in 2018. One of the years, I have it written down somewhere. The Yankees warned the next opponent, I think was the Red Sox, that, hey, watch out for this, watch out for that. We think that there's something going on. So I think they did.
They knew. You think they knew the players? You think they knew that Carlos Beltran was involved and Alex Cora was involved? You think these guys talk and then they knew the players? Because if they did, they hired Carlos Beltran for their front office the next year. So you're going to tell me this isn't a thing that's throughout the sport? Open your eyes, guys. This is all 30 teams are trying to find that edge. And the Astros got caught because they didn't get caught. Let's throw that out too. They got exposed. They got exposed by a player who benefited from it, who is now in the same division as them and came in second place. Think about that for a second, too. So, this whole thing has made me sad. It made me sad how social media blew it up and everybody's a sleuth now. And we got fake accounts, burner accounts of Carlos Beltran's niece that turns out to be some player that's saying that he's got proof that Jose Altuve has a buzzer on him. Maybe he does, maybe he doesn't. But now we hear that story and we take it as word. And now everyone said that's it, he's got a buzzer. Some fake account on Twitter said he has a buzzer. We all run with it. This has made me sad.
Yeah.
It really has made me sad and opened my eyes to what sports is now.
Yeah, it's really sad. It's crazy how in our day and age and day we live, I'm young. I'm 31 years old. And social media, I didn't grow up with social media. I didn't grow up like 3, 4, 5 years old where social media was a thing and you had to be on your phone 24/7. No, I didn't grow up with a cell phone. When I got out of school, I went outside and played basketball for about an hour. Then my mom said, come back inside and do your homework and then you can go back outside later. Like we had a little break. But I'm with you. I don't like how social media blows things up. But then also people believe everything they see. And you can't do that because there's so many burner accounts. There's fake news. There are websites out there that literally put news out there that's fake to see what someone's going to say. I mean, there's all this stuff out there. People are like, oh, it's on the internet. It's true. Not really. But that's just how weird our society is. Thinking about weird society and how crazy people forget about how crazy people hop on things. The Astros got all this traction. Their story broke, I think, November 19th or 18th, something around there, right before Thanksgiving. About a month later, the Red Sox they got into it. Their wrongdoings came out, and nobody talked about it. I mean, they talked about it for a little bit, but all of a sudden, everybody forgot about it. What's your thought about that? I think it's crazy. I think it's stupid. I think they both should be talked about as much as the other. But what are you thinking about the Red Sox and how they have kind of been the forgotten cheater right now?
Well, they're being investigated, quote unquote. But I think they did the right thing in if you think about what's going on now, by parting ways with Alex Cora, because maybe that toned down the investigation they have on him. Same year, 2017, if you remember, the Red Sox and the Yankees had a little tit-for-tat about a Apple Watch. The Red Sox were using an Apple Watch, weren't allowed to use it. They got in trouble, got caught. Red Sox came back and said, well, the Yankees are doing it with the ES cameras in center field. Nothing ever came of that. But Larry Rothschild, the Yankees pitching coach, was caught calling the video room, asking about players and pitchers, and that wasn't allowed. So there was a little tit-for-tat going. I chalked it off to just a rivalry being a rivalry. But now you go back to that because this is what we're doing. This is what we're doing with technology and all this, and how everybody's all up in arms about technology. Now the Red Sox, they're being investigated now. J.D. Martinez actually came out and said he's positive nothing's going to come of it. Players have to stay out of it because if something gets found, the player looks like an idiot. Just keep your mouth shut when there's an investigation going on. But, I think Major League Baseball doesn't want to really investigate. They don't want to investigate the Astros. Social media made them. They don't want to investigate the Red Sox. They're doing it now. Hopefully the Alex Cora thing calms it down. Depends who they hire next. They don't want to do this because they know it's part of the game, that the fans won't buy into it, so they can't market that. They can't let it out. But they know. They're in the game. We are not. We are fans. They are the game. They know what's going on. So just if you're a fan, think about that for a second. That they don't want to investigate the Red Sox. They didn't want to investigate the Astros. And you think it hurt the Astros? They had Fan Fest this weekend. They had 10,000 people there. They made $2.6 million. No one cares at the end of the day. No. At the end of the day, all this fake rage on social media and how you're killing the integrity of the game. the game has no integrity. You'll see that as it goes on, and we'll talk about that, I'm sure, when we get into our next segment. But there isn't much integrity out there. So when your questions about the Red Sox, I don't think much is going to come of it because they're trying their best to try to sugarcoat it now. They don't want to investigate the Red Sox. They don't.
Have you ever thought about making your own podcast? It seems like that's the in thing right now. Well, do I have the people for you? Anchor is a one-stop shop for recording, hosting, and distributing your podcast. Best of all, it's 100% free and extremely easy to use. And now, Anchor will match with great sponsors who want to advertise on your podcast. That means you can get paid for podcasting right away. To get started, go to anchor.fm/start. Once again, that's anchor.fm/start. I find it interesting that because I'm a big football fan, have been my whole entire life, Indianapolis Colts and the Patriots, we don't like each other. We haven't for a long time. And all of a sudden, it seems like whenever the Patriots cheat or they get caught or they're doing something a little off or a little doing something against the rules, not a little, just doing something against the rules, it seems like it's not investigated as quickly as people think it should. And it seemed like this investigation with the Astros went way faster than normal. Like, I was not expecting a ruling on this before spring training. I was not. I thought spring training's coming right on the corner. The Astros and what they did, yes, it's huge. But normally investigations take a long time. And I think the Red Sox, they may be, I mentioned this on my podcast recently, the Red Sox may actually be helped out by spring training being right around the corner, because with that happening, you know Major League Baseball does not want to do an investigation while the season is going on. Because them doing that, it could possibly lose viewers and lose people, and they're already trying to gain people in the younger generation and people that don't want to go to games and things like that. That's possibly a thing. I don't like it. I don't like it at all. But the Red Sox thing, I sure hope it gets resolved sooner than later, because the longer they wait for things to go on, it's just going to be a dark cloud over baseball, the franchise, and things like that. But that franchise, the Astros franchise, the Red Sox, any other team that's actually listed out there as cheating, it's not going to hurt them. I mean, the Red Sox are still going to sell out every game. I mean, it's not going to hurt them in the long run. It's just crazy how, like you mentioned earlier, social media has magnified this whole situation. Let's move to something that kind of was at the heart of me being a baseball fan when I was younger. We all remember Sammy Sosa, Mark McGwire, Barry Bonds, all those guys late 90s, early 2000s that were on steroids. You can say whatever you want. I'm not even trying to get your opinion about should Barry Bonds be in the Hall of Fame. None of that stuff. That's a conversation for another day. But
the simple answer is yes, by the way, yes.
I had a feeling you would throw that in there. Steroids, using technology to steal signs, Pete Rose gambling. One of my friends, him and I have talked about this all the time. They kind of rank these and say, oh, well, steroids, is this serious? But using technology or trying to steal signs, unlike the old-fashioned way, is not really the best thing. Do you put all of these things together, the steroids, the stealing signs via technology, and Pete Rose gambling, do you put those together, or do you separate them and try to divide and say, well, some are together, some are different, or all three are different in their own right?
For the game of baseball, I do not. For the history of baseball, I do. And let me explain what that means. The history of baseball is the story, the ones that we all see, the baseball fan and the non-baseball fan alike. They're going to lump it. There's guys that dive into baseball stats and their teams and follow everything like me, that we're a part of the game of baseball. The history of baseball is everybody else who thinks baseball's slow and moving, but they kind of keep an eye on it. So in the history of baseball, those people are going to think about steroids, Pete Rose, this scandal, the 1919 Red Sox, Black Sox, because they saw a movie on it. They're all going to lump it all together like it's a big thing. To me, it's not. There's a lot of difference there. The Black Sox, will start there. They tried to lose. Pete Rose bet against his team. Well, they can't prove it, but I don't believe Pete Rose, so I think he bet against his team. Those are guys that are trying to lose, and as a baseball fan, I need my team trying to win. The Astros were trying to win, so and they were doing it. In my feeling now, that they were doing it
amongst 30 other teams that were doing something similar. So for fans like that, I don't think it's the same. But for the history of the game, it's going to be lumped in. Scandal is scandal, and whatever gets you on TMZ and gets you in the front page of the top news story in every newscast, whether it's sports or not, everybody's going to lump it in. So for the history of baseball, yes, it's going to be up there for a while. And it all matters what happens next. The reason why Pete Rose isn't reinstated in baseball is because of what happened next. He got banned from baseball in 1989. In 1990, he went to jail for tax evasion. Then they started, all right, let's watch what happened. 2006, he goes to jail for drug distribution. He's showing up at Cooperstown when he's not supposed to sign autographs. It's what happens next. He would have been reinstated. This whole thing would have been gone. The 1919 Black Sox couldn't get out of their own way after they left baseball. They were showing up places they weren't supposed to show up. They were having tournaments when they weren't supposed to have tournaments. They would have been reinstated too. It's what happens next. The steroid guys, a lot of them disappeared. A lot of them showed their sorrow for it. They're going into the Hall of Fame tomorrow, and this is tomorrow when we tape. I don't know when this is going to post. It's probably already happened. The Hall of Fame votes will be in. You will see that Clemens and Bonds will be, if not voted in, close to being voted in. If they're over 70% of the vote or over 65% of the vote, they're going to go in someday. They're both going to be over 65% of the vote tomorrow. No one cares about steroids that much anymore. It's going to happen. It's going to be erased. It's what happens next. So we watch what Houston does next. And whatever they do next dictates how this goes on in the history books.
Interesting. I like that. I'm a person, and I'm with you. Barry Bonds should be in. When it comes to steroids, I'm going to talk about this right now, kind of, because this has been on my mind for a while. When it comes to steroids, human growth hormones, performance-enhancing drugs, whatever you want to utilize to get an edge, on your opponent in that arena, they're in every sport. I mean, you can't tell me, basketball players may not be, they're not as strong. A lot of basketball players are skinnier, but you can't tell me there's not a basketball player out there that's not using something illegal to get an upper hand on his opponent. Football, these guys are big. You can't tell me these guys are not out there using something illegal to get an upper hand on their opponent. Tennis, soccer. I mean, it's just the day that we live in. Now, if it were 50 years ago, I may think something different. But right now, in the way that I think sports operate now, I think people, a lot of sports fans, I think they'd be shocked how many people out there are actually using, I say, performance-enhancing drugs, like a couple steroids in there with that. But am I crazy for thinking that, or do you think there's some validity and some truth to that?
If any professional athlete, and if you were one, if I were one, you try to find the edge. Almost every single one. And it's sad to say, because I'm sure there's a few out there that, hey, no, I won't do that. I have big convictions in that. But that's not the norm. If someone's going to find an edge, they're going to find an edge. And is there any kind of steroid power in Rogaine? Because, LeBron's throwing the Rogaine on there. All of a sudden, his head. So, anything to make these guys better, they're going to use it. Why wouldn't they? This is millions of dollars. These guys, and it's going to sound crazy because they do get paid contracts, have to make their life's worth money in 5 or 6 years. Now, they can make it where the generations to come don't have to worry about money. But most of these guys, those are the stars, most of these guys have short careers. What's the NFL average career? 3 years? For the 52 guys?
Something like that, very short.
I think 3 years. Yeah, and they got to make it. They got to make it in there. It's their dream. It's what they put their whole life in. If somebody says, "Hey, listen, I have a way to do it, and you can't get in trouble," you're going to tell me they're not going to, and no one's not going to contemplate that. And as a human being, let's put together let's put the sainthood to the side. That all fans, think that they have a right to root for. Let's put that to the side. Let's throw it out there. And the fact that these are heroes to kids, let's put that to the side, because they were never heroes. They were never heroes. Growing up, we thought they were never heroes. So let's put all that to the side. If you're going to tell a young man, listen, I have this, you're not going to. There's a very limited chance you're going to get in trouble, but this can keep you in the game 2 more years. You're going to tell me that young man is not really going to contemplate doing that? I mean, do you blame them? If you listen to this podcast right now, you're in your car. Do you blame them? What if you were offered that? Would you put away the sainthood? Put away what we think these athletes should be. Think about yourself. Clear your head. Put yourself
in that position? Do you do it? If somebody says, I can tell you when a curveball is coming by hitting a garbage can, are you going to say, no, dude, I'm good. I want to say, no, hit that garbage can. Just think about it. And, that's where we're at. So you can't fault these guys. You can't. You want to call them all the names you want to call them? Do that. But at the end of the day, think about what you would do in that situation.
100%, you have to. Even on your regular job, 9-to-5 job, if you're in sales or something else where it's a competitive nature, you're trying to find a way to get the upper hand on someone, even on the workplace, your workplace, the place where you work to get to, so you can have money to pay your bills and things like that. Well, the same thing with the athletes. They have worked their entire lives for this, and the higher the level you go up, the level of the competition, the distance between the least and the greatest, it gets smaller and smaller and smaller. Now, of course, you have your freaks out there that are just way better than the rest. But for the most part, there's a small margin between the good players and those that are just average. It's a lot smaller than what people think. So yeah, if you tell somebody, hey, right now you're going to get paid $10 million doing $10 million a year based off your natural God-given ability. But I got a way, like you mentioned, I got a way to go from 10 million, get you a whole lot better, and go from 10 million to 15 or 16 or 17 million. It's like, hold on, man. And you're gonna sit there and me thinking right now, I'm scratching my head like, I know I shouldn't be doing this. I know I could get fined. I know that I could hurt myself in the long run. I knew that I could lose game checks because of what is in front of me. But at the same time, I can get more money. I can plan better for after retirement. I can have a better life for my kids, my family after retirement. And I'm sure these are the questions that are going through these players' heads all the time. I don't like cheating. I've said it numerous times. I don't like cheating at all. I think especially breaking the law, things like that. But when it comes to competitive nature and trying to get the upper hand, my goodness, coaches, no matter what the sport is, everyone's trying to get the upper hand. And steroids is one way that players have done that. Trying to get also with getting the upper hand in baseball and how baseball's trying to get more viewers. Do you think this will hurt or help the ratings, the viewership, the attendance at ballparks, things like that?
I don't think it's going to move the needle at all. I honestly don't. When we look at a lot of teams had their fan fest this year. It was the same number as last year. Coverage is still the same. Actually, it could. Let me change my answer on the fly here. It could help because now everyone has an enemy. Everyone has a common villain. Every story needs a villain. Every story needs a villain. And now the Astros have put themselves on that map. The Red Sox have put themselves on that map. When the Astros played their first nationally televised game on ESPN, I want to see the rating. I bet you, especially if it's against the Yankees or the Dodgers or somebody like that, because if they're doing interleague, I want to see the rating because everyone needs to root against something. That's another unfortunate thing about today's society. We'd rather root against than root for. And you want a good example there? Who's excited that the Patriots aren't in the Super Bowl? Everybody. Everybody who's not a Patriot fan. First thing you hear, well, at least the Patriots aren't there. We'd love to root. We got two phenomenal teams headed to the Super Bowl with such great stories, great quarterbacks, all great stories. All I heard today was, at least the Patriots aren't there. That's everything you need to know. We love to root against, and everyone's going to be rooting against the Astros. So let me change my down the floor. It's going to help baseball's ratings. This is going to help baseball, as wacky as that sounds.
It does sound wacky. It really does. To the average person, and even some of your baseball fans that have been watching baseball, been fans their entire lives, they think it would hurt baseball. But honestly, if you go back, viewership was super, super high and crazy high when people knew people were openly cheating using steroids. I mean, it was no secret. I'm a Cubs fan. I love Sammy Sosa. I love when he would sprint from the dugout out to the outfield at the beginning of every game. At the same time, you knew he was on something that was not normal. But nobody cared because he was hitting the long ball. He was hitting home runs all the time. ESPN during that time period, I was like 19 years old. I remember this very vividly. Watching ESPN, all of a sudden they would stop showing what they were showing, no matter if it was a game, SportsCenter, whatever. They would go either to the Cardinals game or the Cubs game simply because McGwire or Sosa was up to bat. So I think what you're saying is true. It actually may help it a little bit because people like stuff like this. I mean, it's weird. We are weird as sports fans. People enjoy knowing somebody has the upper hand just to see what they do when they have it.
People that say that, the people that already left the game. They already left. They're already not watching. They have to have their opinion, but they already aren't watching. Those are the people that are saying that's going to hurt the game.
Yeah, it's a good point. Good point. I got 9 quick questions for you before we get out of here. Just give me the first thing that comes to your head. What do you enjoy most about podcasting?
I love getting. I love starting. Love getting a reaction. I love getting a reaction to something I said that maybe it starts a conversation. Not so much an argument, but a conversation. And you can see that my opinions and thoughts aren't like the norm. So I love reaction.
And I got to say, you're really good with social media. I've been seeing some of your stuff on Facebook throughout this whole issue with cheating, Astros, Red Sox, whatever you want to call it. You're very, very good about posting things or saying things to see what people will say. I don't know if you do it on purpose or not. But
pipe bombing. I pipe bomb all the time. I appreciate that.
Yeah. It's an art. It's an art that not many people have.
Yeah. I'm yelling against what I am. Yeah, go ahead.
What's your favorite sports movie?
Favorite sports movie, The Natural, Robert Redford.
Okay. What's your best sports memory? Either a player that you watched or a team, something like that.
Best sports memory, 1986, gets by Buckner. Mookie Wilson, ground ball pass. I mean, come on. Ray Knight rounds third, gets by Buckner. The Mets win. I can hear Bob Murphy like he's sitting next to me right now, baby. October 26th, Saturday night. It was about 10:10 p.m. I could tell you where I was. I had Ray Knight rounds, but hits the base, gets by Buckner. Game 6, 1986, no doubt.
I love it. Listening to this, I feel like you're getting chills in your arms right now as you're talking through that whole sequence.
I got tears in my eyes right now.
Who is the better basketball player, Kobe Bryant or LeBron James?
Have this conversation all the time. It is LeBron James, people. LeBron James is the best basketball player ever. Besides Michael Jordan.
Okay. A place you want to go, but you have never been.
Wrigley Field, Chicago.
Dude, I've never been there either. My parents went there recently, and they were like, "Jay, you have to go." I'm like, "Okay, you want to take me? At least let me know when you're going next time. I'll gladly go." But no, they didn't let me know. So here I am in Indianapolis, just enjoy my life while they're up in Chicago, having the best time of their life.
Yeah. I've been to Yankee Stadium, been to Fenway. I got to get to Wrigley.
Dude, I went to Fenway. Oh, it was, I think 2018. I was at a family reunion in Boston, and so I didn't go to a game. Our stay, the Red Sox had away games that whole entire weekend. But I went there, got a tour. That's a place. It looks like it's a fun place to watch a game. It doesn't matter where you are. During our tour, we saw that there were some of the seats, they were old. They didn't renovate them whenever they did their renovations, and you can still see like all the history there just by seeing it. So some weird things sports fans do. We can go to a place and just feel the history. It's like we're in a building, we've never been there before, but we literally feel and sense the history all over the place. That's one place I want to go. I want to catch a game there. Wrigley's like my first choice, but I've just never made the trip. It's not a far drive. As I talk about it, I don't know why. My brother, my mom, and my dad have all been there. I am the only one in my family that has not been to Wrigley Field to catch a game. I feel left out.
Mike and I have talked about this. If we're going to Wrigley, I'm calling you. You are meeting us at Wrigley. We're going to do this together. We're going to do this together. We're going to do this together. Absolutely.
Let's do it, man.
We're going to do this together. Absolutely, 100%.
Favorite vacation spot?
Favorite vacation spot for me was I like a good cruise. But I'm gonna go down to Jamaica. It was one of my honeymoon. It's so relaxing. If you guys never been to Jamaica, man, the water is unbelievable. It's just unbelievable. It's almost like therapeutic when you step into it. Jamaica, I think it was Sandals Resort. I forgot the actual part of the island we were at, but it's just that's what it is. Jamaica for me was my favorite vacation spot.
Okay. What's it like being a podcast co-host with your cousin?
I love it. First of all, my cousin and I, we lost touch for a long time. The podcast brought us back together. He lives in North Carolina. We were never really close. Our families, we knew each other. We saw each other maybe once every 2 years. But, we always cared for each other. It was always fun when we saw each other. But, that now that I get to do this with him, it's almost like he's like my third brother. Now it's really cool. I look forward to talking to him and me. We saw each other. We only saw each other in person once since we did the podcast. He came up. I did a charity softball game. We put together a Little League alumni with all guys that play Little League together. It was a really fun thing. He came up for it. It was so much fun getting our families together. Just getting back to family. Family is so important. No matter if it's close family, far, whatever it is. When you share that blood, it's just something magical. So getting him back in my life through the podcast, it's been really, really cool. And I hope we do it for a very long time.
That's amazing. I got to say, you guys do a really, really, really good job together. And honestly, it's playing off of each other. You know your strengths, you know his strengths, and vice versa. So you know where one person is strong, one person is weak. And you guys kind of have a good, even balance the entire time. And it really makes for a fun podcast every single episode. So I think everyone, especially during baseball season, I imagine knowing how you were. Like I mentioned, I listened to the I think it was your last one where you were talking about your heart rate.
I got my Fitbit on here. Right now the heart rate's only 98, which is high. Yes, I get it. It's high, but that's because I'm getting all pumped up. When I was doing the rants, I got up to like 128. That's bad. That's bad.
Oh yeah.
45 years old.
Oh yeah.
I gotta calm down. But yeah, that was fun. Yeah, when you Mike. Okay.
Yeah.
You go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Mike is I call him the talent portion of the program because he is the talent. I ramble, I go on. He is very. If you're thinking like, why would I listen to this guy? Tune in to listen to Mike. Mike is very. He might have rant, but at least he's even head. And here's the thing with Mike. I host basically and bounce things off him. He has no knowledge what I'm going to talk about. He has no knowledge. We don't do a show run. We don't talk about it beforehand. And when you listen to the podcast, you're like, this guy really had no knowledge. He is so good on his feet and so knowledgeable, yet you'll never know it. You think we planned it out.
I had no idea. I literally had no idea. I assumed, especially since you guys are family, that you guys literally at least gave a couple bullet points or just full rundown. That's amazing. That's a talent right there, a huge talent.
He's a talented guy. My dream with this, I want to do this for a long time, but he wanted to do this as a career. I hope this springboards him into doing this for a career. I want to see him going on radio. He's that good. I really truly believe he's that good.
I'm right there with you. I got a couple more for you. What are your expectations going into this baseball season? Now, this one, don't prolong it. Make it kind of quick if you could.
Sure. Mets win the World Series. That's how I go into every baseball season.
Okay. So that's your heart talking right there.
That's my heart talking. That's my heart talking. But I do think they have a shot better than most years. Let's put it that way.
Okay.
But I do feel like baseball is just going to be even. There's going to be no changes in baseball. You're not going to see it dead.
Okay. One more football game coming up in a couple weeks. Who do you have winning the Super Bowl?
San Francisco 49ers. I think they're the most complete team.
I'm right there with you.
About as best as I could say. I think they're the most complete team. I think Kansas City is very flashy and very, very good, but I think San Francisco is just complete, and they're the kind of football team that I think can get it done. San Francisco 49ers win all your Super Bowl champions.
I'm right there with you, man. I said it before the Super Bowl, before the playoffs even started. I had these two teams in the Super Bowl. Ironically, I never get this correct. And then I had the 49ers just like you. 49ers winning the Super Bowl for the same exact reasons. I have some more. I'm holding my thoughts for another time. I want to talk about that here in an episode shortly. Dude, Keith, it was fun. Before we leave, go ahead. Spend some time promoting your show more than what you've already done. Where can people find you on social media, find your podcast, things like that?
Absolutely. Well, Next Guy Up podcast is the podcast. You can find it everywhere. You can find Jay's podcast. You can find our podcast. Find us on social media at Next Guy Up podcast page. Like Jay said, that's where we start our conversations, quote unquote. They get a little heated sometimes, but come on in and join that. We're not very active on Twitter. I'm trying to get active on Twitter, KP_NextGuyUp podcast. Trying to get that going. Not very active on Instagram. Trying to get that going too. I'm a social media novice still, but Facebook is where you can find us the most. Come on in, join the conversation. I need the help. I need people to back me up. If you enjoyed anything I said, you found yourself shaking your head yes to a lot of things I was saying, and you're as crazy as I am, come on in, because I need the help. I'm getting killed in there.
Keith, my man, this was fun. We have to do this again down the road, maybe in the middle of baseball season. We'll have to do this again and talk baseball again. Baseball is your thing. You get me going about baseball more than anybody else that I know, so we'll definitely have to do this again down the road, man. I appreciate it.
Jay, the pleasure's all mine. Keep on doing the great work. You are phenomenal at this. Thank you for letting me be a part of it, and what a great conversation. Really appreciate it.
And that's all she wrote. Once again, I want to thank Keith Potter of the Next Guy Up podcast for coming on and joining me. Go over and check him out. Check him and Cousin Mike out. They do a phenomenal job, a little bit different, as you heard him say. Cousin Mike has no idea what they're going to talk about on the podcast on that day or for any episode. He just comes on and is ready to go and ready for anything. I said it during the episode while we're recording. That's a talent. That's a huge talent. I don't care, even if it's one sport and it's basketball season. There are 30 teams in the association. You have no idea what angle somebody's going to come at if they don't prompt you with, hey, on today's episode, these are the topics we're going to talk about. And if they don't give you a day or two notice or even the day of notice, nope. Cousin Mike is just that talented. If you never told me that he did not know what was being talked about prior to the episode being recorded, I would not have known. And I'm sure most of the guests that they have don't know either. Phenomenal job. Check those guys out. I'm sure you will enjoy it. Thank you for listening to another episode of the Jay Stevens Podcast. As always, you can follow me on Twitter at Dr_J25. Once again, that is at Dr_JAY, the number 2 and the number 5. Remember to always subscribe, rate, and review. It's a great way for people that are searching for new podcasts to listen to come across this one. Then remember to always get the word out about the podcast via word of mouth. The things that we enjoy in life, we are more willing and somewhat wired to tell other people about. So no matter if this was your first episode or if you have been listening since episode 1, be sure to let people know about the podcast. This has been episode 60 of the Jay Stevens Podcast. I'll see you next time.